Oh my god. What would be the human equivalent to this? An anorexic girl with 50 triple D bosoms. It's something like that. Oh, this is obnoxious. You talk about defeating the purpose of even having, with a little small camera. As I've told you before, optics are optics are optics are optics. Believe it or not, this little setup works decently. I can only see, obviously, I would never want to go with this instead of like a real nice Pro DSLR for use with the the center of gravity is like right here. This camera's so lightweight by comparison. It's like sticking a lens cap on the back of the lens as far as weight distribution. I actually have a serious point here. I'm getting to it as soon as I stop laughing. It's so obnoxious. I like to see a mirrorless fanboy, a phony fanboy, with one of these lenses actually dangling from a shoulder strap, and see how many hours it takes to rip the mount right out of the front of the camera. There's screws holding it in. It would strip the screws. That's rather funny. Sorry, it's just so obnoxious. Excuse me. This actually does work. Of course, you have to crank up the ISO, and I've used it a good little bit just for gits and shiggles. It's like, let's test the limits of things, and you got to get up there. Even though I've got, compared to most shooters, superior hand-holding techniques for shake and or low shutter speeds, even with even upwards north of 400th of a second, you still got issues with shake on something like this. So you got to be careful. But there is a way to fix this. If you want to go to these profane levels, or you have your camera with you, your little mirrorless camera this issue with you, and I don't know, you stick it out the window and shoot pervy pictures of your neighbors. I don't know what the scenario is. I could think of only a handful of scenarios for a setup like this. There is a way to fix this, and believe it or not, it actually works extremely good. Like I said, I used to give shooting lessons and archery lessons. The same thing applies to photography, as I've said before, is that the fewer the contact points that you have with your device, that's why you'll actually see pro archery shooters, you think they'd actually have their hand on the riser of their bow. The riser, of course, is the main part of the bow. Actually have, like a target shooting, extremely minimal contact. And the same is true of techniques and lens holding. Now, how would you deal with an absurd situation like this? You can't really knuckle down on this little tiny mirrorless camera, but there is an answer for if you want to go this obnoxious route, and I don't think anybody's mentioned this before. There's this little device that's made for film cameras, and since all these large lenses, have a tripod mount, believe it or not, this drastically improves it. Now, this is incredibly obnoxious, both in premise and how it looks, and but believe it or not, I'm actually able to drop my finger up here and focus, or my middle finger up here and focus. So the entire unit's like this. So I have extremely low contact. I'm actually holding my hands like this, so even I have minimal contact on the vertical grip. I'm actually able to get at 200 mil. Remember, this is an APS-C sensor camera. I'm able to, at ISO 800, standing up, no supports or anything, able to take, which is an incredibly awesome feat, consistently sharp pictures without blur at 2/50th of a second and 400th of a second, hand holding out in bright daylight, ISO 800 and down to 400 ISO. I even got a couple nice shots at below 250th of a second on the shutter. This, of course, would be using the electronic shutter instead of the mechanical shutter, because obviously mechanical shutter has induces shake and flap. So in doing this, I'm using an electronic shutter. But this is actually an awesome idea, and I don't think anybody's mentioned it before. It is incredibly obnoxious. It's ridiculous, but I don't think anybody's mentioned this before. So if you did want to go this insane route, let me get a profile of this. This should be the screenshot for this video. It'd be like people go, what the hell is that obnoxious nonsense? But, you know, as stupid and absurd as this is, the premise is actually valid, and, you know, I wanted to take it to the limits. And this wasn't using it at 80 millimeters where I had it currently. I was actually using it at 200 millimeters. So hand holding, stand up, ISO 800. I was able to do this number with this amount of hand contact and focus up here with my finger. I was able to hand hold and do under 400th of a second, and more than plenty enough at 250th of a second that were perfectly sharp. And merely holding the lens alone was insufficient to get anything really, you know, except for one shot out of maybe a dozen at 1,000th of a second or less to get it perfectly sharp at infinity, you know, just doing this number. So this is $13 from B&H, I believe. I'll give you a link for it, but it's made for video cameras, but it works perfectly fine for this. And with this absurd premise, it actually works extremely well. So I just wanted to push it to the limits. You know, obviously this is absurd looking, and I could see a very, very small handful of premises where this would be, you know, a doable. In other words, a quote-unquote doable. And this definitely makes it very doable. It's still obnoxious. You know, people are like, what the hell is that? Anyway, thanks for watching. If you like this video, drop me a buck or two. Go tell me jump off a cliff. Whatever makes you most happy. Catch you later.